Yo, what's going on, guys? And wow, what an incredible finale we just got from Loki Season 2. So today I'm going to be explaining the end of the Loki finale, why it is one of the best finales ever made in a show, and the future of the MCU going forwards. And of course, there will be spoilers for the entire series of Loki, as well as some of the most recent MCU projects. And with all that being said, let's get into it. Alright guys, so I just wanted to start off explaining the end of the finale in case you guys had any questions that I could clear up. So, Loki becomes omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient, pretty much the god of the Marvel Universe, or the next He Who Remains, if you will. So, throughout the finale, Loki begins to control his time slipping, and time slipping as in when it actually started at the beginning, when Loki would go in and out of random places in time, but he eventually was able to control it because it happened to him so much. And this time slipping happened because the timeline was branching so much, of course, due to Sylvie messing up and killing He Who Remains at the end of the season 1 finale. So, due to Sylvie's decision on this, after opening up the multiverse, the temporal loom, which is the device that holds together the sacred timeline and keeps it from branching too much, well, that's been overloaded because, as He Who Remains explained in the season 1 finale, well, it's just going to be infinitely branching from now on. So it's being overloaded, and throughout the second season, they've been trying to stop this from happening. And so, of course, Loki keeps trying and trying over and over again to stop this because the temporal loom keeps failing and then exploding, almost wiping out everything. So he keeps time slipping back in time to see what went wrong.
Listen, get in, get suited up.
When those doors open, get down the gangway as fast as you can. Load the multiplier, hit the green button, launch it, and get back, okay?
Okay.
That's exactly right.
Let's keep moving. Let's go faster this time.
Time to be brave.
Ready?
This time.
And then after gaining centuries, talking centuries of knowledge of just mechanics, basically everything Ouroboros and Victor Timely knew, after all of that, he figured out that it was worthless, or so he thought. He thought it was worthless at first because later on they explained that it was a scaling problem because since it is infinitely expanding, they can't contain that. They're never going to be able to contain it because, I mean, it's like, I think they said it's like trying to divide by zero. It's impossible. Though, after Loki finds out that the temporal loom is pretty much destined to fail, he comes up with another possible solution, begrudgingly. So he goes back in time to the season 1 finale where him and Sylvie were at the end of time with He Who Remains. And right before Sylvie was about to land her killing blow and about to open up the multiverse and then causing all the multiverse MCU movies that we've gotten so far and all that mess, right before she delivers the killing blow, Loki time slips and tries to convince her not to kill him. But of course, it doesn't work because Sylvie has been training her entire life and she's been wanting this her entire life to get revenge on He Who Remains for just thinking the TVA is unjust. And because, as a kid, she was abducted by the TVA for her crimes against the sacred timeline, which, doesn't really make any sense, of course, because it's all what Kang wants. Kang becomes basically the fake god of the MCU because, if you guys have read the comics, Kang starts off as, he's still a human. He just becomes, they explain this at the end of the season 1 finale too. He Who Remains explains it, how one of his variants first discovered this, and I think it was the 31st century, which is actually very interesting because this could set up Fantastic Four very well, since the original Kang variant, Nathaniel Richards, is actually a descendant from Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic. So, if you guys didn't know that, pretty cool there. That's basically the first Kang variant who discovered the multiverse and caused everything else. So anyways, Sylvie is just not going to be convinced by Loki to stop. So then Loki deduces that the only other possible scenario to stop all the badness is to kill her, which, of course, he's struggling with because I don't know if he necessarily loves her at this point because he definitely loved her in season 1. which I just thought was a great character study because, Loki being the villain that he used to be was a big narcissist. So him loving himself like that is just really funny and great writing. So I love that. But, anyways, even if he doesn't necessarily love her like that, he at least deeply cares for her, just, from all the things they've been through and how much they can relate. So after numerous attempts of trying to beat Sylvie in a fight and make her stand down against He Who Remains, Loki, it's kind of funny, Loki can just not simply beat Sylvie in a fight no matter what he does. So he keeps going back and back and back to keep trying over and over again because he can't bring himself to kill her. So He Who Remains actually catches on to this because Loki is starting to act weird, and so he notices that he's time slipping. So he puts a pause on Sylvie with his master Tempad or whatever it's called that he can control all of time with however he wants, so that him and Loki can have a conversation with each other. And it's also really interesting because it's the first time we see He Who Remains genuinely serious and not just super goofy and know-it-all. Because when they are at the Citadel at the end of time in the season 1 finale, He Who Remains explained that if you kill me, I'll be reincarnated. And I think we all thought that that meant like through his variant, like Kang in Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania or just something like that. But no, he actually meant straight up reincarnation with himself because he knew that this was all going to happen. This very conversation that him and Loki are now having at this point, well, as he said, he paved the road for. He wrote it all out for this very moment to happen. So he basically gives Loki the choice. Either you doom everything and let the temporal loom fail, or you kill Sylvie and you save everything from, well, you save the sacred timeline from expanding into an infinite number of branches. But throughout this series, they have learned that the branches, I mean, there are innocent people in those branches, and no matter how many places they or timelines they prune, it's still genocide. Those are still people. Even if they're another version of somebody else, they're still living. So it's still killing off innocent people. So they don't want the sacred timeline to be held together. They still want these branches, but they want to control it. I mean, they don't want it to be infinitely expanding because if it does infinitely expand, the universe simply cannot contain it all. It will just, I don't know exactly. It'll just probably go into nothingness. I don't know. It's confusing. But they also don't want to, keep it together, keep the sacred timeline together, because that basically takes out the option of free will, as Sylvie was talking about. They now want to save the branches. So after He Who Remains gives Loki this choice, Loki comes out of nowhere and comes up with a third solution. And so He Who Remains finds out that this is not the first time they've actually had this conversation. We don't even know how many times Loki has gone through this conversation to gain more knowledge from He Who Remains. So Loki eventually just somehow can control all of time now without even a Tempad like He Who Remains have. He just twists his finger and time is frozen or time goes backwards or whatever, because we see it happen to Sylvie. We see it happen basically after that point from now on. So after he literally can control time now and seems all powerful, he comes up with that third solution. He himself goes out and breaks the temporal loom. And I guess he can go out without a suit because he's always been a demigod, so he's at least always been more powerful than most beings. So he goes out without the suit and he breaks the temporal loom. And so all of the branches are now just kind of everywhere into this void of nothingness. But then Loki goes out, he grabs the branches one by one, looking like he's giving life to them, keeps grabbing them one by one, and slowly goes up to this throne. And this actually turns out to be where the Citadel at the end of time was, basically decayed into just this one little rock with the throne on it now. And he grabs all the branches and he sits down, and it's looking like he's weaving everything together. So he sits down and he has to be there for all of eternity now, becoming the god of stories, which he actually also does in the comics, and the head of the MCU multiverse. And man, I kid you not, my jaw was dropped the entire time through this sequence because it was just so visually amazing to see. It felt like you were witnessing something just so huge, and the start of something new, because Loki, he creates actually this his own version of the, I believe it's pronounced the Yggdrasil tree. It's the tree of the nine realms in Norse mythology, and so he kind of creates his own version of it. So now he's letting all of the branched timelines coexist with one another instead of just letting the sacred timeline remain, which is how He Who Remains originally had it. Because instead of letting the branched timelines just naturally do that, just naturally branch like that, he closed it off, because if he didn't, that would mean a infinite number of his variants coming after him, as he explained in the season 1 finale, and that would cause another multiversal war, because all of the Kangs want power, they want to rule, and so that would just, cause a power struggle. So one of the most interesting parts to the ending was how we see Loki recreating his own TVA, as it seems, because we see all of the characters that we've been following throughout the series, like Mobius and B-15 and Casey, and just all of them. It seems like they still have like a memory of what happened, but the TVA now has a different purpose, and we get this really cool reference to Quantumania, because they were talking about different Kang variants they're trying to clean up. So it seems like the new TVA is, instead of pruning timelines, they're pruning the Kang variants, because, as I said earlier, the universe, it doesn't seem like the multiverse, sorry. It doesn't seem like the multiverse is now infinitely expanding, but they still want to leave the branches so, they can let people have free will. So they want to keep the branches, but that does leave more Kang variants still alive now, and that means they're going to try to take over everything. So it seems like the new TVA is trying to prune all of the Kangs from existence, instead of originally how the TVA was trying to prune branch timelines. So, as I was saying earlier, we get this cool nod to Quantumania by Mobius saying to B-15, "Oh yeah, we took care of this." I think he said we took care of this one variant in a 616 adjacent realm, which 616 is actually the it should be the comics universe for Marvel, but they call it that as well in the MCU for whatever reason. So they mean that in the MCU, and adjacent realm being the quantum realm, because I know I'm getting into a lot right now, but basically realms and like dimensions, all of those are inside of one universe. And so here's one universe, and another universe throughout the multiverse has their own dimensions and realms as well. So I know it's confusing, but that's why they said adjacent realm, not just in the 616 universe or anything. So, of course, they were talking about the quantum realm and King the Conqueror, basically the events of Quantumania and how they dealt with him. So it seems like that King the Conqueror is gone, but man, we are just starting, it seems, because I'm not sure exactly where Marvel is going to go now, due to the conflict with Jonathan Majors, and, how he's like allegedly, just going through a lot of court stuff. You can look it up on your own. It's kind of a mess. But either way, I really hope he can get out of it. I mean, I don't know if he's guilty or not, but I mean, one thing's for sure, he is a great actor. So if he keeps going on, that would be great. If he keeps going on as Kang, because man, he's displayed through this series and in Quantumania, he can just play so many different characters. He's very talented. So I would be very excited to see him return for their originally planned next next saga called the Multiverse Saga. Of course, it'll all lead up to in 2025 and 2026, and it might be delayed now due to the writer's strike and the actor strike and all that. But it was all going to lead up to Avengers the Kang Dynasty and then Avengers Secret Wars. So it seems that they are still going to be going with this original plan, but it is also very possible that they don't have to. And I think the ending of this show, I don't think there's going to be a season 3. It wasn't announced, like at the end of season 1, it was like in the credits, it was announced that season 2 is going to be happening. And this was a pretty definitive end, and I hope they do keep the ending here. Don't go on with anything else, because I think it's an amazing ending. Just kind of like John Wick 4. Like, I thought John Wick 4 was just the most amazing ending, and then They're already announcing a John Wick 5. Anyways, that's something else. I'm sorry. But just something like that. I really hope they leave it there. But anyways, it seems that all of the loose ends are now taken care of because we see Renslayer in the void being eaten by Eliath. So she's wiped from existence and no coming back for her. And also in the void, we see another sign of proof that the old TVA was pruned and done away with because we can see a little plaque on the ground saying for all time always. We also see a young Victor Timely that this time is never given the TVA handbook so that he won't be able to become the next He Who Remains. And then also, we see Miss Minutes being rebooted, and as much as I want to believe that she's okay now, man, I've seen a lot of AI movies, so I just don't know. That's the only possible thing I could think of going wrong now. Um, but let's just hope for the best that she sticks to her original coding and purpose. So now moving on, I just want to explain why I think that this is one of the best finales ever made in a TV show. So, the writing, phenomenal. It quite literally came full circle.
I could have done it, Father! I could have done it! For you! For all of us!
I know what kind of god I need to be. For you. For all of us.
Because the finale episode is named Glorious Purpose, as well as the very first episode in season 1. And man, just the whole journey of Loki is spectacular because the show, if you remember right, the show opened with the main Loki, the one that we follow throughout the entire series. Well, that Loki started off as the main villain in the first Avengers film, and then before that we saw him in the first Thor movie. And so, of course, super evil guy. You would have never thought he would have became what he did in this show. But that's how he started off in this show because that's when the TVA took hold of him after he took the Tesseract, when the Avengers were doing their time heist in Endgame. But man, it's just crazy that the Loki that we started out with in this series was the one that we knew as selfish,
You can't kill an entire race.
Why not?
self-centered, just downright evil. I mean, he was literally about to take over the entire world at that point. But after he was abducted by the TVA, he, after going through all of the past moments in his life and the future moments in his life, being the Dark World and Ragnarok, and Infinity War when he got killed by Thanos, after he saw all of this, and then I think it was in the first or second episode when he saw a bunch of random Infinity Stones being used as paperweights. I thought that was hilarious. After he saw all of this, he was rethinking everything, and he had a whole new perception of life and knew that his was meaningless at this point now.
Is this the greatest power in the universe?
And so he started going after things greater, and he started rethinking what he truly wanted. And throughout the series, we learned that he just doesn't want to be alone. He just wants to have friends. He wants to be loved. And originally he wanted to have a throne. That's all he cared about. That's all he was obsessed with. He wanted to take over Asgard and then eventually Earth and then all the rest of the 9 realms. He wanted to take over everything because he just craved power. But after he rethought everything and knew that he just wanted to have other people and to be loved like all humans should, he gives it all up in the end. It's beautiful. It's, oh man, it really gets you thinking. Like oh man, it's great writing. Sorry, it's just great because and then the coolest part is when he said to Sylvie in the finale, the last thing I want is a throne. He has to sit in a throne for all of eternity without anybody there. He sacrificed his whole life to keep everything in order and to keep his friends safe and for everybody to have free will. So it's really cool if we just get to see Loki in any other capacity, since it seems like he pretty much just controls everything that's going to be happening from this point on. Of course, not like directly, because the whole point was for people to have free will and let the branches occur. But I mean, who says that? I mean, he can't intervene at certain points, you know? So I'm just saying it seems like Loki's story is concluded, but I mean, you never know what could happen, because the future of the MCU with Deadpool 3 coming out, and we already know that's going to be dealing with time travel, and there's even been rumors that the TVA could actually show up in that, which would be very, very interesting. And then, of course, we've already had a bunch of movies dealing with the multiverse already, so there's a lot of potential to go on with this, but I don't really think that there's a need for any of the Loki characters to show back up. But I mean, of course, it would be great to see them. Also, guys, real quick, so while I was editing this, I saw the Marvels, specifically the post-credit scene and the trailer for Madam Web that just dropped, and wow, it really does seem like they're going to connect everything together with the Sonyverse and Fox universe, because at first with the whole Morbius credit scene that confused everybody, I didn't really think they would do anything with that, and then same with the X-Men, Fantastic Four, and Inhuman characters we saw in Multiverse of Madness. But no, now they really seem all in on this, so there's some great potential there, even more so than before. So I just think that Loki as a character, his ending was definitive, and I don't think it should be messed with from here on out. It was simply just perfect, and he fulfilled his glorious purpose for the right reason.
I am Loki of Asgard, and I am burdened with glorious purpose.
Your friends are back where they belong.
But without them, where do I belong?
We're all writing our own stories now.
Alright guys, so those are my thoughts on the Loki finale. If you have any other lingering questions, just let me know in the comments down below, and hopefully I'll be able to answer all of them. And just let me know what you thought of the show as well. It'd be interesting to hear from you guys. Anyways, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.
Wind in the hair, little mist slapping you in the face, and nothing but open water in front of you.